All right, welcome everyone to quarter 4 of the quarterly dairy legal webinar with our focus topic is Pennsylvania's milk marketing law beyond the overorder premium. My name is Audrey Thompson and I'm a staff attorney here at the Penn State Center for Agricultural and Shale Law. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our partner, the National Agricultural Law Center, for sponsoring this webinar. The National Agricultural Law Center at the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture serves as the nation's leading source of agricultural and food law research and information. And this material is provided as part of that partnership and is based upon work supported by the National Agricultural Library, Agricultural Research Service, U.S. Department of Agriculture. This webinar is the 14th webinar in our Dairy Quarterly Legal Webinar series. And previous webinars have included discussions of international trade, the 2023 Farm Bill, labeling standards, and many, many more. And we just put some materials in the chat there for you. You can learn more about our series on those links. Next slide, please. All of those series are available on our quarterly dairy legal landing page on our website, and a link for that page is being posted in the chat right now. Here we go. I'll also mention that our Dairy and Dairy Products Law Virtual Resource Room and our Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board Issue Tracker are also available on our website. And there are links to those pages as well as the event page for this webinar, which is where you're going to access the PowerPoint and also our quarterly dairy legal update, which is a compilation of topics and updates, legal developments in the last quarter. Next slide. And I will also mention we have some programming coming up. Our next Dairy Quarterly Legal Webinar is in April. That's going to be an overview of U.S. state milk pricing systems. And then also in March, we're partnering with the Pennsylvania Agricultural Ombudsman Program to offer another ACRE presentation that will be with Robert Willig, the Senior Deputy Attorney General with the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, and Robert Minen, Assistant Research Professor with Penn State Extension, and our own Brooke Dorr. That's going to be a great program. If you can make it out, it will be in person at the U.S. Hotel Tavern in Hollidaysburg. And then I also encourage you to check out our Understanding Agricultural Law webinar series if you haven't. Clean and Green is coming up this month. That'll be separations and split-offs. And then in March, organic production, and March 20. Oh, those are wrong dates there. Sorry. The producer protections for buyer default should be in April. And all of that is available on our website. All right, I will now turn this presentation over to Chloe Marie, our research specialist, who will present a roundup of this quarter's dairy legal developments. Chloe, the screen's all yours.
Thank you, Audrey, and welcome everyone. So today we are going to discuss key developments from the last quarter of 2023, including, among other topics, the continuity of Pennsylvania's $1 overorder premium, the recent wrap-up of the federal milk marketing order hearing, some USDA funding opportunities for dairy businesses, as well as a new USDA guidance, FDA guidance on yogurt standards for small businesses, the whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act of 2023, which is gaining momentum in Congress, and a quick review of the final report on Canada's dairy tariff-rate quota allocation measures. And as we talk about these different developments, Brooke, feel free to chime in whenever you have something you would like to add.
Thanks, Chloe.
So let's start with our first entry. So on December 13, 2023, the Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board once again further extended the $1 per hundredweight premium for all Class 1 milk produced, processed, and sold in Pennsylvania until June 30, 2024. So there have been many calls over the years calling for a reform or abolishment of the overorder premium, although efforts to achieve consensus have thus far been unsuccessful. And one dissenting opinion in this general order noted that although every Pennsylvania consumer pays the overorder premium when they purchase fluid milk, not all Pennsylvania dairy farmers receive a direct benefit, and advocated for a different structure that would first distribute overorder premium dollars uniformly among all Pennsylvania dairy farmers, second, not charge consumers substantially more than what is paid to dairy farmers, And finally, not provide incentives by which payment of premium dollars can be avoided by moving milk across state lines. All right, and in addition, the board recently issued cost replacement orders for all 6 Pennsylvania milk marketing areas, and you can find links to all 6 orders on this slide.
Chloe, I was going to mention one thing
Yes.
for our listeners. The sort of the little buried fact, or maybe the illustrative fact here in that last slide, shows people one of the things that causes a lot of aggravation over the pricing system, which is that these you see the rates of return that are listed there for dealers and for retailers. And so that's a product of the language of the law, meaning that they have an actual range by which their rate of return is to be guaranteed, or it needs to be within that range. And of course, producers don't actually get that in the milk marketing law as it's presently written. So this is a good illustration, and these haven't been updated in quite a while, but this gives people an idea as to how these cost replacements for the dealers and retailers are factored, and the fact that producers themselves don't get that sort of thing in the producer price. So that's what's kind of notable about this particular slide. It might illustrate this to people who didn't quite catch or understand that before. So back to you, Chloe.
Thanks, Brooke. So now shifting to some USDA developments. So the USDA began a hearing on proposed changes to the federal milk marketing order back in August 2023. And the hearing experienced several pauses and restarts before reconvening on January 16, 2024. And it ended on January 30, 2024 and lasted for a total of 49 days. So transcripts for the hearing held between January 16 and 30 are not yet available, but you can access transcripts for all other hearings, including for the months of October, November, and December 2023 at the following link here on this slide, FMMO hearing transcripts.
And Chloe, I was just going to add that, of course, we're probably going to see some significant periods of time now consumed in the briefing process, but also that's a great process for those who are interested, because then you can start to scope out some of the the sort of the summaries and the distillations of everybody's arguments and what each party is actually asking for and exactly why they think it's justified. So these briefs are going to be the thing that really makes sense of all of this to most of us who would be observers. Back to you.
And on October 13, 2023, the USDA Farm Service Agency extended the deadline for milk loss program applications from October 16 to October 30, 2023. So this program helps farmers who are forced to dump or remove milk from the commercial milk market due to qualifying weather events such as drought, wildfires, floods, excessive heat, winter storms, etc. And the FSA clarified that those eligible causes of loss also include consequences of the weather, such as power outages, impassable roads, and infrastructure losses. So also in this last quarter of 2023, the USDA granted different funding opportunities for the dairy industry. In November 2023, the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service allocated more than $1 billion towards 81 conservation projects within the US through the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So Dairy Farmers of America and the Maryland and Virginia Milk Producers Cooperative Associates were awarded respectively $22.8 million and $10 million for their climate-focused projects. And in addition, in October 2023, the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service granted $23 million to 4 dairy business innovation initiatives at the California State University, Fresno, the University of Tennessee, the University of Wisconsin, and the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. So DBI initiatives support dairy businesses across the board, offering technical help and funding for various products. And the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets supports dairy production in 11 Northeast states, including Pennsylvania, and received approximately $7 million. So now let's talk about the FDA's recent release in November 2023 of a new guidance document to help small businesses understand and comply with recent changes to the yogurt standard of identity that were implemented in June 2021 and April 2023. So the guidance, which consists in a question and answer format, covers definition changes for yogurts, allowable pH levels, requirements for milk fat and milk solids not fat, guidelines for reduced fats, low fat, and non-fat varieties, and approved sweeteners for inclusion in yogurt products. And as a reminder, in June 2021, the FDA removed specific standards for low-fat and non-fat yogurts. So these types of yogurts now fall under the more general rules for foods that make claims about their nutrient content. And in addition, FDA made other changes to the yogurt standard and including some technical updates to the definition and allowed specific claims about yogurt cultures under certain conditions. And also in April 2023, the FDA issued a final order modifying the yogurt acidity requirements in the 2021 rule. So to our next item now. So on December 13, 2023, the U.S. House of Representatives passed House Resolution 1147, which is also known as the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act of 2023. So this bill was introduced in February 2023 by U.S. Representative Glenn G.T. Thompson from the 15th District of Pennsylvania, and would allow schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program to serve whole milk to students with flavored and unflavored, reduced fat, low fat, and fat-free options. Currently, schools are only allowed to serve low fat or fat-free milk. The bill also provides that when assessing whether a meal complies with regulations on allowable saturated fat content, the fat in school provided milk will not be counted towards the total saturated fat content of the meal. And additionally, and interestingly, the bill includes now a provision that would prohibit schools from purchasing or offering milk produced by China state-owned enterprises. And this legislation has now moved to the U.S. Senate.
And Chloe is just going to add for everybody attending that obviously a big victory for G.T. Thompson in getting this through the House relatively, quickly. And now we'll see what happens in the Senate. Obviously, prospects of getting through the Senate are going to be a lot slimmer. But certainly this is more progress on the whole milk return to the school lunch program than we've ever seen in the past. And by the way, I think the R stands for House of Representatives, not resolution, just so people understand it is a statute, not just a resolution. So best of luck to those in the Senate who are going to try to move this bill. Seems to be certainly a lot of attention being paid. I just saw a piece, I think it was in the New York Times in the last 2 weeks or so, about dairy fat being reassessed as not as negative nutritionally as had previously been the case. So I think all of this is starting to gain steam. So back to you, Chloe.
Thanks. And another piece of legislation is also up for consideration in Congress. U.S. Senator Peter Welch from Vermont introduced the Organic Dairy Assistance Investment and Reporting Yields Act, also known as the ODairy Act, in the Senate on October 19, 2023. So this proposed bill would offer financial aid to organic dairy farmers to reduce losses beyond those covered by existing USDA disaster programs. Financial assistance would become available to those farmers who experience a cumulative decrease in net income of more than 10% in any single calendar year due to the rising cost of organic feed or other inputs. The bill will also require the Secretary of Agriculture to develop and propose a new safety net program specifically for organic dairy farmers and would allocate $20 million annually to support investment in organic dairy processing infrastructure. The bill would also create regional positions dedicated to researching and advising on organic dairy marketing.
Well, I was going to add that Senator Welsh, Peter Welsh from Vermont, was the person who introduced it. I think you had mentioned that, and with the people who have been following along probably remember that we've gone through this somewhat upheaval in the New England states over a loss of markets for organic dairy farmers, in the Vermont area and Maine, and so. Obviously he's looking out for that constituency here, and seems to be a sort of if you see an organic dairy bill at the federal level, you're probably a safe assumption that it came from someone in the Northeast / New England area, such as Senator Welsh. So back to you.
And in November 2023, pharmaceutical company Elanco Animal Health and High Alpha Innovation launched together Athian, a first-of-its-kind carbon credit marketplace. In their press release, the companies explained that this new marketplace is pretty similar to a traditional carbon offset market, and dairy farms of all sizes using approved feed management solutions from Elanco Animal Health will be allowed to participate in third-party verified programs that can quantify their emission reductions. And these reductions will then be translated into tradable carbon credits offered for sale on that Athian platform. So companies within the dairy value chains such as manufacturers and retailers will be able to purchase these credits to offset their Scope 3 emissions, which refer to indirect greenhouse emissions that occurred within the supply chain. So now in the litigation front, on October 5, 2023, the U.S. District Court for the District of Vermont dismissed with prejudice a dairy farmers class action lawsuit against Dairy Farmers of America. The complaint, which was filed in July 2022, alleged that Dairy Farmers of America engaged in several anti-competitive practices in the Northeast market for raw grade A milk, including forcing mergers with member farmers to establish monopoly power in the market, also buying up milk transport services used by non-members and then denying them access unless they join the cooperative, manipulating the federal milk marketing order rules to both keep raw milk prices low overall, benefiting them and the entire market, and unfairly targeting non-member farmers. And finally, limiting access to processing facilities for independent cooperatives and dairy farms. So the plaintiff, through this class action lawsuit, sought compensation for lost profits. However, the federal district court dismissed the case after granting DFA a partial summary judgment in September 2023. The court ruled that the dairy farmers' complaint violated a settlement agreement established in the Allen class action litigation, which was finalized in June 2016 and then upheld by the Second Circuit Court in April 2017. And for those interested in the specifics of the litigation and settlement details, I have provided the docket number for each case.
And for those, Chloe, who just look at this and think, Wow, that's, it sounds like it's, some pretty strong allegations. This is kind of viewed in the industry as more or less a retread of the same things that were in the Allen case. And of course, not lost on the judge that the finding was, that everything alleged was within the scope of what had already been settled in the Allen case. So the Allen case was really the earth-shattering sort of development, or shall we say, the large headline. This is kind of a retread of that, which ultimately went nowhere, which I think is what most people thought when it was originally filed. Back to you.
And finally, our last development, in November last year, a dispute settlement panel ruled on Canada's dairy tariff rate quota allocation measures. In a nutshell, the US initiated consultations with Canada in December 2020, challenging Canada's interpretation of how it intended to administer the language in the USMCA about market access for US and other dairy imports. So tariff rate quotas allows countries to import specific quantities of goods at lower import tariffs. And Canada reserved 14 dairy TRQs for the exclusive use of Canada dairy processors and further processors. So the US challenged this reservation of quotas, stressing that they were unfair and harmful to American dairy farmers, and also in violation of the USMCA. Because they restricted the ability of American dairy producers to sell their products in Canada. So in January 2022, a panel ruled in favor of the US, finding that Canada's restriction of eligibility only to dairy processors violated the USMCA. Canada responded by adding distributors as eligible applicants, but still excluded retailers and other potential importers, so still limiting the access of US dairy producers to sell their products on the Canadian market. So the US launched new consultations in May 2022, claiming that Canada's system continued to favor processors through allocation methods, followed by further consultations in December 2022, seeking to address additional aspects of Canada's TRQ administration. So the US presented 4 claims against Canada. First, the US argued that Canada's definition of eligible applicants for TRQs was too restrictive by favoring dairy processors, producers, and further processors, excluding entities such as retailers who were also active in the food and agriculture sector. While Canada maintained that the USMCA does not require Canada to allocate its TRQs to every entity that is active in the Canadian food or agriculture sector. The US further claimed limiting TRQ eligibility to processors, distributors, and further processors violate provisions of the USMCA because it imposes a condition on TRQ use by limiting who can access and use the quota. Canada stated that it only regulates limitation on how importers use TRQs after allocation, not who receives them initially. Second, the US also raised concerns regarding Canada's method for allocating TRQs for dairy products and argued that Canada's market share-based system unfairly favors processors, limiting access to TRQs for other applicants, such as distributors. More specifically, the US argued that the system grants processors a disproportionately large share of TRQs, leaving only a small portion for distributors based on an equal share approach. They also expressed concern that the system allows processors to choose their buyers, potentially undermining distributors and restricting access to others. Additionally, the US objected to Canada's requirement for applicants to demonstrate past market activity, arguing it discriminates against new applicants and violates the USMCA's provisions on TRQ access. And finally, the US objected to Canada's requirement, also challenged Canada's system for returning and reallocating unused dairy TRQs, claiming it violates the USMCA requirement for timely action. So the panel ruled that Canada's dairy TRQ allocation measures did not violate the USMCA, though it could not determine whether Canada's mechanism for return and reallocation of unused allocations violated the agreement. And in a dissent opinion, however, one panelist wrote that Canada's exclusion of retailers and other actors from its dairy TRQ system violated the country's commitment to make its dairy TRQs available to all applicants active in the Canadian food or agriculture sector. All right, so that is all for today's dairy roundup development, and I will now hand it over to Brooke.
Well,
All right.
we've got a couple questions, and these I think are based on the developments. Do we want to do that now?
You want to go ahead? Sure.
So we've got, this is in relation to the Canada dairy tariff rate quota. Do border state dairy farmers have to compete cross-border with Canadian producers? And does that put Pennsylvania farmers at a disadvantage?
I don't know myself. I don't know the exact ability the Canadian processors have to move their product across into U.S. state, into the United States. I mean, I don't think it's going to be free, flowing, so to speak. In other words, they're going to have to, deal with, whatever system is in place. I know that, obviously the U.S. does not get access to the Canadian market in any free way, hence the arbitration. So I honestly don't know the flow back across, the border this way, to comment on that. But I think might be a good drill down topic in the future at some point.
Yeah. Let's do, this is also Mr. Actor here. Did I understand correctly that those that ship dairy products interstate are exempt from the surcharge price support?
I'm not sure what that's referring to, so it's hard for me to answer. Yeah.
Then we got a couple of questions. Why doesn't every dairy producer benefit from the price supports and the surcharge?
Yeah, again, I'm not sure what's being referred to there.
Right. And then let's go with, did the new yogurt standards improve or degrade the minimum quality of yogurt?
That's a good question too. I don't know. It's not been, that yogurt standard thing has been slippery. And every time I read it and try to figure out exactly what's going on, I get a little bit, confused. I know there's a history to, some in the industry feeling that the, definitions were not clear enough to articulate, the right products with the right title, so to speak. But I don't know anything. I don't know more about it in terms of the, the sort of the food science behind it.
Right. So if I just may add, actually the FDA revoked the standards of identity for low fat and reduced fat yogurts. And it says that it's, I mean, the goal was to allow for a little more flexibility for dairy yogurt producers and how they also label their yogurt. Not that it has anything to do specifically with, the quality of yogurt, but I guess that was the idea here, provide a little more flexibility.
Right. I don't know the food quality or the, quality had anything to do with this. It was more a question of just terminology, and whether it was matching, the products as tightly as it could.